I'm here to kind of talk, through my experiences, my interests in TikTok, and why I think it's more important than maybe you think. And her being 55, I'm 33, so I'm kind of right on the edge of not being able or not allowed to get TikTok. Apparently it's for some of our younger members of the audience that I can see. But basically, as Herb says, I've been kind of covering the rise of online video for the past 10 years, essentially, as my role as a journalist for publications like Wired, for The Economist, the BBC, The Times, The Guardian, elsewhere, and decided that we needed to pay more attention to these apps. So, as Herb says, I wrote a book on YouTube in 2019 where I tried to convince people that it was overhauling TV, that it was going to reinvigorate the world of culture. And then I moved on to TikTok. And the reason why I find TikTok so fascinating is people discount it as a gimmick. They think that it's a thing that just distracts them when they're bored. They think it's dancing videos, and they think that it's miming along to songs. But it's actually changing the world in some way. And the reason why it's changing the world is its scale. A kind of question for you to think about. How many interests do you know of that are shared by 23 million people in the UK? And you can think about the scale of that in terms of one of the most recent events. So the funeral of the Queen was watched on TV by 29 million people. So we're talking about that same sort of scale. 23 million of us, it's not an interest, but apparently 23 million of us struggle to sleep at night. So that gives you a sense of how big this is. And of course, when we talk about this, we're talking about TikTok. So 23 million people in the UK, 100 million across Europe, more than 1 billion worldwide, and that's in 4 or 5 years. This is huge, and this is becoming really huge in such a short space of time. It's overhauling social media in a way that we didn't really understand, and because of that, it's gaining our interest. So I have access to a database of media coverage, which basically gives me an oversight of how the world newspapers and news websites think. It's called LexisNexis. If you have a university subscription, I know we have quite a lot of university students in there. It's brilliant. You should have a look at it. All university libraries basically have access to this. And I looked at how many news stories in the English language mentioned TikTok in the last 7 days. And it is this big number. I'm going to give you lots of big numbers throughout this little talk. 10,435 news stories in the UK about in the English language about TikTok in the last week. This is now part of our cultural conversation for all the reasons that Herb mentioned, including its geopolitical aspects, which is something that we'll get onto in a little bit. Of those 10,000 news stories, many of them focus on TikTok as if it is an overnight success story. They think of it as if it's come out of nowhere, dominated our lives, and suddenly becomes this huge thing. And the reason that we think about that is because for most people it has, except that actually it's not, because it's redefining our global culture and rewriting it as well. You can think about the simple scale of content that is on there, and anything from, the sea shanty that you probably all know and probably now humming in your head, to the way that the war on Ukraine has been played out through TikTok. In the first few days of the war, I did a story for Wired that looked at the numbers. There were almost 1 million views every single minute on videos tagged #Ukraine on TikTok in the first couple of weeks of the war. When the world changes, when we want to understand about it, when we want to unite around things, we turn to TikTok. And that's really significant. And apparently it all happened by accident. We all didn't know about TikTok before 2017. Fast forward to 2022, well, not most of you, maybe. I might be sort of assuming knowledge here that isn't there, but I would wager that a good number of you are on TikTok, because 1 in 3 of us are. That number that I gave you at the very start, 23 million, equates to 1 in 3 Britons. Not just 1 in 3 adults, but 1 in 3 people alive right now. So I've interviewed 17, 18-year-olds on TikTok, and I've interviewed 82-year-olds on TikTok. They span the whole range of generations. And everybody thinks it happened by accident, except it didn't. This is the headquarters of ByteDance, the company that owns and runs TikTok, based in Beijing, world's most boring yet massive open plan office. Absolute nightmare. You can never take a private phone call in this room, I don't think. But ByteDance is a huge company. It is a $300 billion company. This app that you think is just kids lip-syncing and dancing is not. It is massive. It is generating vast amounts of data, and it is selling that. $300 billion company in terms of its valuation as of last month. And TikTok is just one part of it. It's a big part of it, $12 billion in terms of its forecast revenue for this year. But ByteDance has tried very hard to make TikTok a success. The fact that it is wormed into our minds and onto our home screens on our phones is not an accident. When TikTok was being designed, or more specifically when its Chinese version, Douyin, was being designed in 2016, the designers decided to download hundreds of different apps, lots of different ones, short-form video apps, photo apps, messaging apps, and they were all looking for the secret of success. They took little elements from each one. So they said, I like the full screen video of this one. Let's put that in our app. I like the sharing functionality of this one. Let's borrow that. Those hundreds of elements from those hundreds of different apps came together for what was called Douyin, which then became TikTok in the West. They don't just think about that in terms of app design either. They learn from predecessors' mistakes. For my book on TikTok and lots of my reporting, I've spoken to executives who used to work for competitors, Vine, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, the likes, and they literally talked about how they would get taken out for dinner by ByteDance so that they could learn about the mistakes that have gone before. This is a company trying to engineer success, and it's all got one goal from founder Yimin Zhang. And that goal is for ByteDance, and by extension for TikTok, to be as borderless as Google. So in the same way that we have Android smartphones in the UK, the US, everywhere around the world, the goal is that TikTok does the same. We all use TikTok wherever we are. And what does that mean for us? Because ultimately, people are very, very concerned about this, right? It means that we won't just use TikTok in the future, but we'll use ByteDance's other apps, because while you think that TikTok is just a little bit of a diversion, the goal is almost that it's a Trojan horse, that you will start to use other ByteDance apps in all parts of your lives. Just in the same way that for the last 10, 15, 20 years of our existence with technology, we use Google and Facebook. I have an Android smartphone. I use WhatsApp to communicate with my friends. I am in the claws of big tech. And so, in the same way that YouTube, Google, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp have become household names that we all know and love and give our data to, so TikTok and ByteDance will in the coming years. Because there's TikTok Shop, people may have bought from some of that. You can watch TikTok live. You can buy other products from a thing called Fano, which I did. Don't. The quality of the products is absolutely terrible. It's really cheap, but it's awful. There is Rezo, which is a version of Spotify being developed by ByteDance, and also Lark, which is a kind of ByteDance version of Slack. All of this is designed so that you use and touch ByteDance products in every single aspect of your life. The big unknown question is whether there are risks in that. Is it a problem that we might use ByteDance products day in, day out in the same way that we use Google and Facebook products day in, day out? We're reaching a reckoning about our addiction to big tech and big tech platforms. We don't like the idea that Google or Facebook knows every aspect of our lives. It's why we have people who join communes and things like Wim was talking about, because we want to get away from this really dominated lifestyle which we have with big tech. And there are concerns that ByteDance, because it is a Chinese company, is somehow as concerning or more concerning than Google and Facebook. You've seen the headlines. You've read the stories, you've heard the rumors. ByteDance is sending our data to China. It's really worrying, it's really scary. We need to do something about it. I've spent about 4 years now tracking TikTok and ByteDance, and I'm not the world's best journalist by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm far from the worst. I'm decent at my job. You don't get to be where I am in terms of the publications I write for by just not being great, okay? By not being very good at what you do. I've not seen any evidence of this, nor have any of my peers, and we have been trying pretty hard, okay? Like, it would be the best story in the world if I could come on stage and tell you, ByteDance is a Chinese scam and you should not use it, okay? I would love to do that, because that would mean I'd be made for life. I'm not, sadly, okay? I'm not. But even if TikTok were to disappear or to fizzle out over the next few years, because that's also a concern that people have, I don't think it will, by the way, because it's too firmly entrenched in our lives. The reality is that the legacy of TikTok and the legacy of ByteDance apps is already here. TikTok's rewriting the norms of social media, and others, including those old names that we love, are choosing to follow it. Here's 3 different apps that you may or may not recognize. 3 different apps that all look embarrassingly, awkwardly the same. So on the left, you have Instagram Reels. In the middle, you have the OG TikTok. And on the right, you have YouTube Shorts. It is significant that Instagram and YouTube, 2 of the most popular social media platforms that we've used for the last 10 years or more, are starting to look an awful lot like TikTok. They're starting to borrow elements of it. Everything is becoming the same. Everything is becoming boring and homogenized. But it's not just TikTok leading the way. It's also borrowing elements from other tech giants, acting in the same way as they do. So this is TikTok's latest attempt to dominate your life. It's a feature that was released just last week called TikTok Now. Those of you who have maybe ever used the app Be Real, I can see some kind of recognition there of that, will notice that this idea, you get a push notification, you then have 2 or 3 minutes in which to share a photograph from the front and back camera of your phone. That's not original. But TikTok has decided it wants to borrow from other people as well. So that means that TikTok is essentially cemented as one of the main drivers of our digital lives. It's something that we will end up using a version of in just the same way that we use Google for search, Facebook for social media, Twitter for news updates, and so on. That's good for some people, scary for others, but regardless of what you think, no matter what the future holds, one thing is for certain. Do not ignore or downplay TikTok. You might think it's a stupid video sharing app. It's not. Really isn't. Instead, it's TikTok world, and we are just living in it. Thank you very much. I will give you the clicker back.
Thank you, Chris. I guess the question for is what is it about this short video format that is it just literally because it's short and it's just like you just constantly you just keep flicking through it endlessly, and what is it that makes it so different?
It's our attention span is short. We've had 20 years of kind of having our just attention span demoralized and hammered down so that we are no longer interested. But I think that what's really fascinating about TikTok is the way that they've made that a benefit. They train their algorithm, the computer code that serves us those videos. They've trained that on loads of video content. And the fact that you get 15 seconds or 60 seconds at most means that in an hour, it's learning far more about you than anybody else, which is what was really interesting about Mim's stuff is she's talking about communities, right? And on TikTok, you can build your community and get delved into it in a way that you couldn't through previous apps.
Right, and I guess that might be, because obviously as you mentioned that, so obviously Instagram and YouTube in particular have effectively duplicated it. And I mean, I will notice as an old person who primarily watches YouTube in terms of internet video, that now these shorts are being played, and they are. But I would say that. So would you, at least at this stage, would you reckon the way that TikTok serves video is probably, if you will, smarter than their competitors?
Yeah, and that's what separates them. I think that's what's really interesting about the rise of Reels and about YouTube Shorts is they aren't as well trained. Yeah. And so that's why they'll always kind of be those maybe second-rate competitors, which is interesting in a way, but also scary in a way, because it means that TikTok knows so much about you.
And in terms of, I mean, I don't know if there is any science yet on it, but is it unhealthy? I mean, there's always this fear that, oh my God, like we're just thin slicing our children's attention in particular, even next it'll be 5-second videos or whatever it might be. Is there any sense of whether or not this is like a bad thing for us?
Scientifically, not yet, because science works slow, academia works slow, and these things move really fast. But I think, I can't escape the fact that we are talking in the week that the Molly Russell coroner's case happened, where for the first time a coroner in a court said that social media was a contributing factor to her death, and that's really worrying in a way. So, we have to hold these social media platforms to account more. I know we have kind of folks from the tech community in here who maybe think deeply about that. It's really important that we're conscious of that and we try and affect a change. Because right now, I know I hate to be the person that's also going to be the second speaker saying capitalism, maybe not. Yeah. Following on Mim, but I think capitalism does have perverse incentives in ways, particularly when it's amplified by social media. So we need to maybe keep these people in check a little bit more, tighten the reins a little bit. Okay, interesting. I mean, I can't imagine that having our children drain effectively their neurotransmitters through hours of endless stimulation in this way might be, but who knows? Maybe it's not as bad as we think. Fun though. Yes, well, we've said the same thing about video games. And when TV came, that was going to destroy civilization, right? So just really quickly off topic, Twitter. Only because I wanted to get your professional. Is that just always going to be a kind of perennial basket case in terms of social media? I mean, obviously there's all this controversy now, but amongst the professionals, is there a sense as to whether or not it's going to be an Elon Musk forced acquisition, or or just don't know? Well, I mean, I think in the last month or so, the case for Twitter has got much weaker, given the whistleblower that was announced in recent months. But I think it's a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation, right? If Elon Musk takes over Twitter, chaos ensues. If Elon Musk doesn't take over Twitter, Twitter was already pretty much badly run, so no good things happening in that. Okay. Well, Chris, thank you so much for allowing us. Great to see you again. Thank you. Thank you.